And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome in to the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Retro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen.
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
I am not breathing already. Inevitably, we start the 10-second countdown, and that is the only moment of the day that Gretchen is funny. Yeah. Just in that 10-second period.
That's right.
We've got a great show today. Our friends at Community Foundation have teed up some incredible conversations of great people doing incredible work in the community. I'm a huge fan of Amelia Gibbon and the work that she's doing in the community. Her commitment to Northwest Ohio is just...
And if I'm not wrong, we've been trying to get Amelia for... She's been a little...
She's in demand.
Yeah.
It just took somebody else telling her she had to be on the show.
That's right.
So apparently the three of us...
The Sheriff's Department, we sent to her home and dragged her here.
That's exactly right. And then Brittany Moore and Tina Hall from Reinvest Toledo and from...
The Visionary Project.
The Visionary Project. Thank you. Will be on the program as well. And then we'll wrap up the conversation with an actual journalist.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which makes this embarrassing.
It is. I know that you joke about not wanting to do Gretchen's Wacky Quiz, but that is going to be...
torture.
It'll be fine. Fletcher Word is going to join us from Sojourner's Truth. Of course, also one of the Sojourner's Truth, one of the co-hosts of the local thread here on WGTE will be on the program as well. I'm excited to hear some of his background and story and why it's important, and maybe some of the history of the name, right? I think.
And why this show represents an evolutionary U-turn to journalism.
Yeah, well,
from his mouth.
That it does.
He's also a fellow capped professional.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever seen Fletcher without a ball cap on, and I don't want to call him a mentor, but I wouldn't be wrong if I did.
This is something you're trying to make okay in the professional environment as a baseball
Look,
hat?
I'm almost half a century old. I would venture to say I'm making it okay.
Okay.
So in the years I worked for the Mudhens, I would see somebody I'd see a player without the baseball cap, and I have no idea who they are.
Right.
Do you have that experience?
I do have that experience.
But you don't play
I know
baseball.
what you're doing right now, and I'm not going to walk down this path because this was something we said before the show, and Gretchen made a shot at...
It's called show prep, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. It's first time for everything. So yeah, Kevin, people don't recognize me without this hat on. With some regularity, some there may or may not be family members.
But you do have darling new glasses on, and you look very handsome today.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the people at Petco, I presume...
Can we get a tight shot on
Tight
Matt?
shot on Matt's new
There it is.
glasses. Look at those Ray-Bans. They're black for our radio listeners.
All right, listen, if you go to Walmart, that claw hand... I don't know if we're allowed to mention Walmart on WGT because
it's local. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Amelia Gibbon with Reinvest Toledo on the 419.
Get those glasses.
Support for the 419 comes from Retro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at retroadvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. Our friends at the Toledo Community Foundation are encouraging us to talk to great people in the community doing great things. There's no question that applies to our next guest. We're joined now by Amelia Gibbon. Amelia, you and I met a long time ago at United Way. You've gone on to continue to do amazing things in the community, but as life would have it, I don't really know what you've been up to. So why don't you catch us up? So you went from United Way to the Friendly Center.
That is correct.
What are you doing now?
So now I serve as the executive director of Reinvest Toledo. I'm also a small business owner, AG Sandbox, where workers play and plays work. And I spend my time really helping community to realize that it has power. Power lies in people. And how do we strategically elevate our voices so that change will happen, one neighborhood, one community at a time.
Where does your voice come from? Where did that? I mean, let's talk about Little Amelia. Kind of where did this start?
Little Amelia started out in the red soil of Alabama under the rule of George Wallace. Little Amelia went to the back of restaurants because I wasn't allowed in the front. Little Amelia was the first person in her family to go to an integrated school, started my journey there as opposed to a segregated school. The first words that she heard that impacted her journey were, I tried to keep all of them out of here. Those words were uttered by the principal, who was Caucasian, and the teacher. And so that in itself, they stole my voice, for lack of a better word, because every time I walk into a room, people don't look like me, that plays, and I have to, play over that message and realize that I do belong, that as a community, I oftentimes share this quote that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but that is not something that those in power, perceived power, actually believe in.
Well, they might not know what the actual problem is, meaning the problem from their perspective is not the problem from other people's perspectives. And so if they don't talk to other people, many times people in leadership, that's a huge part of the problem.
That is absolutely, that's the crux of the problem, because you make decisions based on your frame of reference as opposed to the lived experience of those that you are positioning yourself to help.
How did you get into, I'm sorry, Matt, how did you get to Toledo from where you grew up?
My mother was very brave and decided that she wanted a different narrative for her children. So she packed us all in the back of her Chevy.
Moved north.
And we came up north.
I was going to ask, you're talking about finding your voice, and it's certainly possible, although infrequent, that people find their voices on their own. But talk to me a little bit about your mom. And you just mentioned her bravery, but that is allowing for you to be the person you are here today. Not that you haven't forged your own path, but you talk a little bit about her and your brothers and sisters and what sibling you dislike the very most.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I can do that. Sure. Honestly, it's a little bit emotional because Mother's Day and the anniversary of my mother's death is coming up. So this is always a hard time. Sure. But this is a story that I tell people about my mom. She was a nurse's aide. She decided she wanted to go to school to become a nurse. Yeah. And we lived in a very, when I say rural community, there was literally one road in, one road out. She didn't have her license, so every morning she would get up. After she got off work, she would get dressed and start walking to the college, community college. If you can imagine walking from Toledo to Pinta, not Pinta, but more like Owens, right? Believing that someone would pick her up and give her a ride. And so that was her determination. She didn't have her license. So she would just get up every morning and start walking, go to nursing school. And my daughter is a nurse. She actually has her EDD. Yeah. And I always tell her she finished her grandmother's journey. Yeah. Starting as an LPN, walking to school. And then she's on the faculty of the University of Toledo. So now she influences and trains other nurses.
Do you have trouble still telling her what to do all the time? My mom has struggled with not bossing me around.
Telling my daughter what to do? Yes, no, I don't. It's very difficult to argue with yourself. But I absolutely, when my mother was living, we always had this conversation, and I tell people, I share it with them. She was very frustrated with me, and she was like, I am not your employee at the Friendly Center. You cannot tell me what to do. And I said, if you were my employee, I would fire you so you wouldn't have to worry about me. So it's just understanding nature, relationships, and strong personalities.
At the risk of hitting fast forward way too soon, because there's so much that I would love to talk to you about, how has these lived experiences, both as a daughter and as a mother, in Alabama, and then again growing up in Toledo, fueled the work that you're doing with Reinvest Toledo?
I think that, I was a teenage parent, and so going to get benefits, that was the most dehumanizing experience. I found it very invasive and intrusive, and I just walked away. I'm like, I don't need this, right? It's not a fair exchange. And that was the first time when I began to understand that systems that were created to help us oftentimes obviously oppress us, right? And so I did not want to be part of the system. I wanted to actually help to shift. I don't think systems, will change in our lifetime, but we can certainly influence them to shift in ways that are more beneficial or inclusive.
I've been in many a room over the years, Amelia, where there's a problem and the solution by someone in the room eventually is Amelia Gibbon can figure this out.
Oh,
let's call
scary.
it. Let's call Amelia.
I brought my list.
That is
So,
really scary, guys. We're in trouble.
Tell us specifically what Reinvest Toledo is doing for residents that are participating in the program.
Well, so Reinvest Toledo's mission is simply to affect change in LMI communities through neighborhood leadership development. We don't believe in masses of people. We believe in helping those who are closest to the problem and the solution find their voice. Because neighborhood leaders understand what happens in their community. There are commonalities, certainly, but every community has its own personality. And so the Visionary Project, which is what was funded recently by the foundation, was created to engage a group of neighbors in the Inglewood community to begin to understand this idea of land reusage. Brittany Moore will be here shortly. Brittany actually did the research as part of her capstone, pursuing her master's degree, and she was an intern for RT. But as you know, briefly, Dole Jarvis was a Fortune 500 company at one time. It left Toledo. So they left all their stuff behind, right?
Yes, they sure did.
And so the neighbors in Inglewood understand, from an environmental space, this is unhealthy for our community, it's an eyesore and all those things. But what I wanted them to understand is that you need to educate yourself, right? You need to go through a process so you can understand that it's not just we want, it's working with those who are funders and those who are developers and understanding what our local administration, the role they play. They spent some time connecting the work of the Visionary Project directly to the Forward Toledo plan. It supports it, it aligns with it. It is not, the Visionaries Project is not a silo, right? It aligns with the bigger picture, but more importantly, is driven from a community space by neighbors.
We're talking with Amelia Gibbon with Reinvest Toledo. You said folks that are closest to the problem are often closest to the solution.
That is correct.
What is the biggest problem?
The biggest problem, from my perspective as a community leader, is not listening to the people and allowing them, not allowing them, but understanding they're equitable stakeholders and they should be treated as such, because you will get closer to the solution because everyone's engaged instead of just a select few based on a criteria that is not reflective of community.
At the risk of putting you on the spot here.
No, don't do that.
Okay, never mind. I love your sweater. You look great in red.
Thank you so
Next
much.
question. You're welcome. With someone who has experienced segregation and has an understanding of the inherent flaws in our system, which are to some degree, if not a large degree, purposeful, how do you find grace and provide or and patience for people who look like me? Meaning, like, we chatted a little bit before we started about having your voice taken out or not being seen when you're in the room, right? Now, that's certainly not always the case, but you've certainly known that it is absolutely the case sometimes. So how do you measure that? How do you stay? I mean, you're a human being. You really experience these things.
Right.
And you have to champion progress and understand that there are small wins and things of that variety. But how do you get the strength to move this forward and not just quit and be angry?
I can't afford to.
Okay.
I think that, obviously I have more days behind me than I have in front of me. And so time is very precious.
Yes, ma'am.
And the reality of it is, what is my legacy? My legacy is not money. My legacy is my ability to find young people to create the succession plans that are needed. I think that's part of the problem. That's probably the biggest problem for me as a leader, is understanding that we have failed to prepare the next generation of leaders. And Reinvest Toledo is a platform in which to do that, right?
Is that the goal? Is the goal to have people participate in Reinvest Toledo's programs, including the Visionary Project, and then take the mantle up?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you'll meet Brittany. I think Brittany's not 40, so, but she is definitely.
Well, then we don't want to talk to her.
No, she has a lot to say, but so certainly within Reinvest, we are intentionally placing younger people in leadership roles, but we are also providing a safety net as the elders, so they can fall and get back up and learn without being harmed.
What do you do with the frustration that people feel?
Yeah.
Even if they think, like, this elected official or this company leader, school leader, whatever, is great, says they're going to do something, and then they don't, or they fail to do it. or they don't communicate that they can't be done. What do you tell people about, sort of to Matt's question, about getting back up or trying it again or trying a different way to get something accomplished?
From my perspective, I think one of the things we fail at doing is thinking from a strategic space. And that's what I talk to people about.
Yeah.
Please understand that it's not going to happen overnight. We didn't get here overnight. But instead of reacting from an emotional space, let's think about it strategically. And let's think about the long game.
Yeah.
Because you can't change it overnight. And I think when people inhale and exhale and realize that, and that they do have power, you know, to create those strategies that make sense, then they're more willing
Yes.
to stay engaged and not just throw up their hands and give up.
But
What's
that
your
is-
typical week look like in your agency? What kind of things are you doing day over day? You know, your sort of, what does your work life look like?
So with Reinvest and also doing my business, right? So just really quick, in the Sandbox, I do project management, community engagement, and life coaching. So a lot of time, you know, I spend a lot of time with my clients, and that's a place where I get energy from,
Sure.
seeing that growth there.
Absolutely.
But with RT, it just depends on what project and what work is happening. I mean, we recently, we started working with WGTE with the Make It Make Sense.
Yes.
That's all about creating town halls.
Yeah.
So individuals, neighborhood leaders can talk to subject matter experts to understand what is happening on a national level and how it trickle down and impacts what goes on.
Can you talk a little bit more about Make It Make Sense and where you guys are in the project?
Well, so we work specifically RT. We really are more on the community side of it. So we've been doing neighborhood surveys, being able to understand and target what's important, what community needs to know, and so how do we create those town halls and make sure that they actually are talking to people who are decision makers or can educate them so they can make informed decisions on how to support. We're also getting ready to launch year 2 of the Power Tour. Year 1 was about the power of the vote. Year 2 is about the evolution of leadership. And we're focusing on 18 to 24-year-olds and helping them to understand art and civic engagement and how those things married together can elevate their voices as
That's
leaders.
so great.
We talked about the Visionary Project. We're talking about Make It Make Sense. These are programs that are funded in part by the Community Foundation.
Yep.
I know you and I worked together at the United Way at the same time with Kate Sommerfeld, who's now leading the foundation. Talk to me about, you know, just as a community leader, what you're seeing in the Community Foundation and the role that they play in putting some wind in your sails.
So I hate the word program. Let me just say, I prefer opportunities. Because programming says simply that there's something wrong with you and I'm going to fix you. Go through my program. So opportunities.
Then Gretchen could use some programs.
I think I'm certainly very excited about Kate taking the leadership role, because I think the foundation plays a critical part in supporting the work of organizations like Reinvest. But more importantly, I think beyond money, they have expertise, they have experiences that they can bring to the table to undergird leadership. Right? It's important for people to see themselves. Right? And so while Kate and I might not look alike, but Kate and I are very committed to the same thing, and that's making community grow, becoming inclusive. So it's great that we can sit down and share our lived experiences and how we can take what we have access to and make it work collectively.
As we close, may I ask you, we talked a little bit about legacy. Talk to me about what you would want people to say about you. If it was your retirement party, what is a successful career? What would you want people to say about your legacy?
I've been fortunate enough that people have already said these things to me that I have.
Because they can't wait to get rid of you.
I want to go. They won't let me go. Like, please let me ride it up into the sunset. But no, that I have affected change.
Yes, ma'am.
That one of the things that I'm most proud of, and people say, and they believe that I'm a change maker, and I do it from the bottom up, because I believe that, unfortunately, in Toledo, when you say grassroots, you don't think of power. And RT's tagline is changing the narrative, and that's what we're going to do.
If people want more information on, we're going to do a couple of things here. More information on Reinvest Toledo, where can they find it?
They can go to our website, reinvesttoledo.org.
And if they want more information on AG's Sandbox?
They can go to my website, agsandbox.
Amelia,
Easy.
thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Brittany Moore and Tina Hall here on on the 419, powered by WGTE.
To me, community means connecting to others.
I'm Donnie Miller, and welcome to The Point.
I love CBS Kids!
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Vision loss for people is not the end. It's a story. It's the next chapter.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
Monday through Friday, it's the 419 powered by WGTE. With Matt Killam, Gretchen DeBacker, I'm Kevin Mullet. What can people expect on the show?
It's going to be an hour, a reminder of why this is a great place to live, work, and play.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. Just wrapped up a conversation with Reinvest Toledo's Amelia Gibbon. We're joined now by Brittany Moore and Tina Hall to continue our conversation about the great work that Reinvest Toledo is doing.
Brittany, Tina just, not Tina, I apologize. Amelia was just telling us a little bit about some research that you've conducted both for your capstone and as also for Reinvest Toledo. Can you talk a little bit about what that work was?
It was just background information on the Doler Jarvis Company. It was started in 1908 by an immigrant that came to America, Herman Doyler. He was a German immigrant. And it started off in New York, and eventually Mr. Doyler met Willis Overland, John Willis Overland, at like a auto show. And Willis Overland was able to convince him to move his operation, which is die casting, metal die casting, to Toledo, and specifically into the Inglewood neighborhood. And for over 90 years, Doler Jarvis was the backbone of the Inglewood neighborhood.
My dad worked there for a couple of years.
Wow.
Yes.
What was the reason that it left?
Presumably in 1908, my dad looks like he's 2,000 years old.
That math doesn't fully hold up.
Well, you should see him.
Yeah. The reason that it left, it was just economic pressures. Doler Jarvis got really big during wartime. They made a lot of parts and things like that for planes to fight in the wars, and got a lot of defense contracting, which really helped the company to expand. And then, with overseas pressures and different things like that, by 1998, the Toledo plant closed.
And what is the impact that has had on the Inglewood neighborhood?
It has just left a hole in the community.
It's a massive structure, too, just to provide some context to it.
Yes, it's 9 acres.
It's 9 acres, which is immense.
Right in almost like in the middle of the neighborhood.
Right.
And for the building itself, pardon my interruption, the building itself, the square footage, do you know that off the top of your head?
I don't know it off
Just
the
make
top
it up.
of my
This is
head.
not a show based on data.
I want to pull Tina into this because Tina, you live in the neighborhood.
Yes.
You had said right before we started, before we came back from the break, that you're living in the same house you grew up in.
Yes.
So you've been in this neighborhood. How have you seen the changes in this community?
Well, I actually live right down the street from Doler Jarvis. Every morning when I get up to leave, I drive right toward it. It's an eyesore. It makes the community look bad. I'm excited that we are doing some things to make some changes, and that in the next few years, maybe even next year, when I drive down the street, I'll be able to see something pretty rather than the eyesore that I've looked at since it closed.
So tell us what's going on with the site.
So I want to tell you a little bit about Doler Jarvis Visionaries.
Yeah, please.
We are a group of community leaders. Some of us, most of us grew up in Inglewood, although some of us don't live there now. We got together, we learned about brownfields, we learned about Doler Jarvis, we connected with community members. We connected with Land Bank, who actually owns the property now and is cleaning it up.
Great organization.
We've had meetings with them to talk about what the community would like to do.
And
with
your
that.
vision is to be your own defense contractor, right?
No, my vision is to make my community look like a community
That's
worthwhile
right. Yes,
living
ma'am.
in.
Yes, ma'am.
But right now, we are looking at some things that Land Bank gave us, some ideas that they want to do, and our group is going to kind of look at those, do some research, decide which two we want to show community, and we're going to assist them in having community meetings so that the community has a say
they get
in what
30 years. This is almost 30 years. This building has not been operating at all.
Yeah.
Not that it was ever particularly aesthetically pleasing. I can't discount my day job. Obviously, you can probably tell by my apparel that I work for the Metro Parks of Toledo. So it's baked into our DNA. Did you do your research? Yeah, so smart. We don't have to touch her for the rest of the show. But the impact of looking at a building like that, and that's not a criticism, I mean, that did employ people and feed families, for almost 100 years, right? So that's not a criticism of that.
Right.
But staring at a building and then a vacant building does cause damage to the most important muscle in your body, and that's between your ears. Yep. So this is a generationally important project, right?
Yes,
Can you talk
absolutely.
a little bit? I know we're going to talk about some data and details, and we'll have to talk to Ms. Moore again, regrettably. But talk to me a little bit about the impact generationally this will have, and how fulfilling that must be.
Well, during the course of learning about how to be an advocate, one of the things that we learned, and it really hit home for me, is do we want to put Band-Aids on things, or do we want to build legacy?
Well said.
And for me, this is about building legacy. I am a senior in the neighborhood.
We didn't say that.
And so I will say,
okay, all right.
I am a
feel safe.
senior in the neighborhood. I am considered an elder in the neighborhood. And for me, it makes me feel good because when I'm gone, then that will be something that the younger generation will be able to look at, and it will fulfill that legacy,
Yes, ma'am.
as opposed to just putting a Band-Aid on
right.
it and keep it moving.
Have
right.
the visionaries decided on that are participating in this project? What are some of the concepts, if you can talk about that?
So the area is very toxic. So we can't put a mall up there.
Right.
We can't put a grocery store or anything like that. We can't even grow vegetation up there that we can eat.
Right.
So a lot of the different ideas that were given to us are to help the soil become better.
Yeah.
And so one of them is kind of a plateau with pretty flowers. Another one is the no-mow grass
native grasses,
with
clover.
a walkway. Since the area is so large, and I'm sure it's over a mile, they have a little trail that could be walked. And then the other one is just basically growth, plants and things that would help the soil become healthy.
I mean, this is, you talk about legacy, right? And what this is going to be. I mean, I know you talked about being an elder in the neighborhood. I mean, this is work that you're putting in, both of you putting in such hard work right now for something that even if you, when you see it built, the real gift of this is still probably a generation away, right? Of somebody that grows up, that their entire life is in a neighborhood where this beautiful space exists, right? What keeps you, I mean, knowing that you're not, it's a generation away, right? We're likely not going to see the payoff. What's the motivation that keeps both of you going and putting the time in on something like this?
I think for me, it's just to have a lasting impact, almost kind of like how Doler Jarvis did for that 90 years, you know? It employed over 8,000 people. They got union-paying jobs, you know? You were able to see, like, payday was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because you could see people are taking home their pay, they're spending it in their neighborhood. That's helping the corner store and helping the homes, property values, and different things like that. So I think that's what we want, is we want to have that continued impact, and we want people to have something beautiful to look at, and hopefully we'll be able to include some way to remember Doler Jarvis, because it is important to remember it.
Yeah, that's such an important thing to say. You know, as we reimagine the downtown area for the Metro Parks project, we came across a lot of industrial legacy, not dissimilar to what you're articulating. Rolling Mills was a iron ore producing facility, so we found these giant crucibles underneath similarly awful growing space, right? What was dirt there was actually fly ash, which is a toxic material, probably kissing cousins to what is underneath Doler Jarvis. But to your point, we can't, and Ms. Gibbon talked about it, another really awful part of our history, but it is our history, and if we ignore it, then we're not learning anything, right? There's no legacy based on soft coating something or putting a candy shell around it.
Right.
Right, because then another 100 years, then we're more susceptible to falling back.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about patience for other generations isn't really what I mean, but there are things that you've experienced or seen. You're changing out 9 acres for a generation that everybody thinks the generation below them is like the sign of the apocalypse, like these kids nowadays. But talk to me about the duality of that, right? What does that mean to you, working with the youth and making a difference to the kids of today? And how do you teach them and kind of let them learn on their own as well?
I would like to be considered a role model, and eventually the model that we have created doing this, I think we should be able to do it with others, and especially do it with the youth, because one of the things that we need to help youth understand is that they have a voice, and that advocacy is an important part of moving the community forward. And advocacy also it's an important part of moving things forward in all of the aspects of our life, whether it's employment, whatever. So I'm hoping that as an elder in the community, that I can be a role model and that I can show others, especially our youth, how to become advocates within the community.
You mentioned earlier in the segment learning how to be an advocate. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's not a spectator sport, right? No. You got to show up. And not everybody's invited to the table, as you both know. So talk to me a little bit about the lessons you've learned about advocacy, and if you were teaching a class on it. What are the building blocks of that?
It's kind of funny because we did take classes on it for a very, very long time.
Why did it not work for her?
And there are revelations that I think you go through. Going through the coursework, and it was almost a year, wasn't it? Yes. Going through that coursework, there were revelations that you had. Like I said before, one of the things that hit me hard was, do you want to put a Band-Aid on it, or do you want to build legacy? Right. And I was a social worker for 30 years.
Oh my goodness.
And so what I did, it feels like now I was putting Band-Aids on stuff. Now that I've learned how to become an advocate, now I know what it means to build legacy and how important that is.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think if I were going to do some coursework around that, I think that I would help people understand the difference. The difference in, and an example that we had was, every year, we give out winter coats to the kids who need winter coats. Every year, we do the same thing, but that's a Band-Aid because it's not helping and it's not teaching anything. And so I think as an advocate, I would want to teach people that you need to fix the issue and not just put a Band-Aid on.
Ideally, we would never have to give out the coats, to your point. Meaning like you're solving the systemic problem.
Right. Yeah.
May I ask the same for you? I know it's difficult to follow that. Because, no, I mean that sincerely.
But I think maybe to pivot a little bit, like as you think about that next generation, right? The kids that are getting the coats, I mean, what's the lesson that you hope they get on advocacy from the work that you guys are doing?
Just like Tina said, the work, it's really about, and we talked about this in our very first class, is about doing good versus having an impact.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do with the Visionaries program is we want to have an impact on the Inglewood community and for it to be multi-generational, just like how Doler Jarvis was. And so that's what I hope that they walk away from. It's something that they can remember through oral history, but it's something that they can physically see and go to.
And I think that impact is something that our friends at Toledo Community Foundation share in that mission. What other aspects of your life has learning about the advocacy affected? Are you responding in different ways at work or within your family?
Speaking up when a co-host is rude to you on a talk show.
That's right. You're welcome. I'm just allowing you to show all your leadership.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think for me, it really has taught me that advocacy, everybody has the power to be an advocate. You don't have to lead a whole movement. Because really the people that make up the movement are the most important pieces of the movement, right? And so it's about coming together and being able to work hand in hand with the people in your community to build something better for all of you.
Who are some of the partners that are helping make this work happen?
Well, there are 8 visionaries, and then the way our program was structured, we had to reach out to those people who we needed the training from. So that meant we had to reach out to people in the city, people from the University of Toledo. So we literally had to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We need for you all to come and teach us.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, if people want more information on Reinvest Toledo or on the Visionaries Project, where can they find that?
Well, it's on the Reinvest Toledo website.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you
No,
so
thank
much,
you
Fred
for
and
being
Tina.
here.
What a pleasure to meet
problem.
both of you. We appreciate you being here. And of course, our incredible thanks to the Community Foundation for introducing us to such great people and supporting this incredible work in communities that needs to happen. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation. We'll welcome on WGTE's own Fletcher Word.
Yeah.
From the, oh my gosh, what is the local threads? I'll get it. Local threads program here on WGT. We'll be right back on the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at WitroAdvisors.com.
Destination Toledo. Whether you're a local or a visitor, Destination Toledo invites you to explore the region and be a tourist in Toledo. Find events, dining, and things to do at visittoledo.org.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. There's some great things happening around the community. Obviously, our friends at Reinvest Toledo doing incredible work, but WGTE is doing some incredible work to retell the stories of Northwest Ohio as well. And part of how they're doing it is bringing on great people that are great storytellers. We're joined now by Fletcher Word with Sojourner's Truth newspaper.
Thank you, Ken.
Fletcher, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I talked a little intimidating because you're an actual journalist.
Yeah,
and
with also a great voice.
Yeah,
No, I've been called worse.
And a great last
and
name.
I plan on doing that on this segment.
Okay.
So we have no business entertaining your talent, and I hope that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, but it's true. One of the things about this show that we do, am I pronouncing your name right? No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that's important to us on the show is talking about and elevating local stories. But there's a much bigger part of that as well about local journalism. Can you talk to us a little about the intrinsic value of both of those concepts?
Well, I can certainly address the journalistic standpoint now. The Sojourner's Truth, we are now in our 25th year.
That's amazing.
Believe it or not. And next April will be our 25th anniversary. And so,
and who's the namesake? Make sure that people don't blow by the importance of that individual.
Well, Sojourner Truth was a well-known abolitionist.
Yep.
She was born in New York City and gained her freedom, changed her name to Sojourner Truth, became an abolitionist, and one of her most famous speeches, Ain't I a Woman, was performed here in Ohio, in Akron. So
what's the last significant thing that happened in Akron? Your words.
Okay, well, I hope LeBron James isn't hearing this.
He is. He's our next guest. We can't get this segment over fast enough.
So that's who she was, and so when we started the papers, we were juggling names. That one was because it has the word truth in it. Was one that really struck us.
Yes, sir.
And because our audience is primarily African American, digging into the African American community, certainly naming the paper after an abolitionist made a lot of sense.
Yes,
also.
sir.
So,
25 years ago, creating a newspaper focused on truth may not have felt as innovative as it does today, right? Journalism, finding truth, trusting truth, has become increasingly harder in a politicized world. And I think, I'm a believer that the 24/7, 365 news cycles have destroyed how we tell stories because we're just trying to fill time. But how do you hold yourself to that standard of truth today?
Well, I think I might be the wrong person to answer that question. I think if you look at our readers, our audience, and the responses that we've gotten, we've never been attacked for being untruthful. Okay, so that's the good part of all that, because I think at the beginning, one of the this sort of subtitle on the cover is "Ye shall know the truth," biblical phrase, and to be honest with you, our readers have not attacked us, for being less than truthful.
But that doesn't happen by accident. Right? It's a commitment. It's exhausting.
We are careful.
Yeah,
There's no question about that.
Right.
Who's the we? Tell us a little bit about the operation of the paper. I see you, we've all seen you around at many community events, interviewing people, taking photographs, et cetera. Are there other staff members? Tell us about sort of your...
No, I do it all by myself. I even take out the trash.
That's right, yeah.
No, over the years, we've had some wonderful people working for us, especially on the reporting side. Right now, for instance, we have several outstanding reporters, such as Asia Nail, whom I'll talk about a little later, Don Scotland, Alexander Leatherberry, and unfortunately, as these things go, in the course of 25 years, we've had some people come and go.
Sure.
Which happens with any sort of organization.
That's right.
So I could tick off a number of people that I'm sorry that we lost.
Yeah. Can you name some you were happy to see go? No, I'm just kidding.
But also, let me say this. We're talking
please.
about reporters. Those are the sort of staff reporters. A large amount of our content is by contributors. Okay.
Dr. Perryman.
Dr. Donald Perryman, who has been outstanding over the years. Leif Tolliver, a local attorney. They've contributed over the years with a lot of opinion. Then we have people who write about health and business and that sort of thing. So a lot of it is from contributors.
How important is it to be telling? You said your audience is predominantly African American. Telling the stories of the African American community in Northwest Ohio.
Well,
to have a paper dedicated to that.
I want to be careful when I say this that our audience is primarily African American. The paper is primarily about what's going on in the African American community. Okay, be it local, national, or international.
Right.
As far as our audience is concerned, that's a different story because, all sorts of people are picking up the paper and reading about local things that happen.
Fletcher, is Word your real last name?
No, it used to be bricklayer, but I changed professions.
Yeah.
Right.
What was it before?
It was.
I was just kidding. Thank you.
So every time I change professions, I change the name.
That's why my last name is Killam.
So I
I'm in the prosecutor's office.
I started off in the restaurant business as a waiter.
Right.
And, it was, and then it was, hey, you.
That's right.
When the phone call came from WGTE about the local thread, the new program here focused on local stories and journalism, what was your immediate reaction to that, and why did you ultimately decide to get involved?
Well, I thought it was a great idea. It was an opportunity for us to showcase a lot of individuals in the community who are doing some important things, interesting things, and it gave us an opportunity for members of our staff and others to contribute. What we did was we divided into 4 segments. What's happening in the community, what's happening in business, what's happening in travel, what's happening in health, and brought in people like Asia Nail, one of our, one of our reporters, Alexander Leatherbury, another one of our reporters to handle this. Stacy Fowler, who does Pursuit magazine, was one of the hosts, and Ricky Tyus, who owns a travel agency, did the travel part. So. And when I say travel, local people who are traveling, and what their experiences are and how you do it and what you need to be aware of and that sort of thing. So it was great to expand on some of the things that we write about.
Sure.
Take things maybe in a different direction with some of the same people we had interviewed, and so it was fascinating.
Most people have a routine in the morning, or depending on their work schedule when they get up. The first things they sort of check in from a media standpoint. What is your morning routine to acquire news, and why is it Fox News?
I'm
just kidding. I am interested in.
We talked about the truth. I mean, they tell the truth.
As they know it. They tell it as they know it.
They tell that as they know it.
Maybe a certain president put something on his
that's right. You're talking about Coolidge, I assume?
And then Fox reports it.
Yeah,
so it's obviously the truth.
The truth. Yeah.
Well, but
it's from Truth Social.
It's the Truth Social.
But I am interested in you roll out of bed and what does the media check-in look like for somebody who's
the first thing I do is look at the news from around the nation, around the world, and
who do you trust? Where do you go?
I look at everything. I don't do a lot of television because it seems to me very often television doesn't have the bandwidth to really explore a lot of things.
Too much theater.
So NPR is, for me, the first and the last thing in terms of news, in terms of straight news that I trust, news I believe in, news that can expand and give you the complete story.
And some context.
Do you often take the things that you see on the national level and try to relate it to local people and get your story ideas that way?
Oh, always. Always. When you're talking about some of the subjects that we've discussed, be it health, be it business, be it politics, all of that, whatever happens nationally has some sort of local echo to it,
right?
And so
it's helpful for us to be reminded of that.
Yeah, it's all relatable.
Tell me about Mr. and Mrs. Bricklayer, your parents. That you got here on your own. I mean, not literally, of course, but you, from a journalistic standpoint, was it important to them? What did they? What were they like?
No, well, my parents, they were fantastic. I wish, I have a couple of kids, and I'm not sure that I'm as good a parent as my parents were.
Well, they did say they had some notes.
So but they were great, and as I said, I grew up on the East Coast, and so we eventually, when I was the age of 10 or so, moved to D.C., and that really was my hometown for a long time.
And what brought your family to D.C.? What did your folks do there?
Work.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. What an interesting interview.
That's the truth.
Teachers, yes.
They were teachers, and their goal had always been to move to D.C.
Yeah.
They were from the South, from Virginia.
Okay.
And for a lot of, especially at that time, a lot of African Americans, D.C. was the holy grail to move to.
Yes, sir.
Getting out of the South and, getting into an exciting town that was open and relatable to black folks.
Yes, sir.
And was becoming, from a population standpoint, was becoming heavily black at that time.
Absolutely.
At that time, one of the first cities to be so. So that was their goal.
We're talking with Fletcher Word with Sojourner's Truth and the local thread. Where can people pick up Sojourner's Truth?
We're in probably about 100 locations around town, grocery stores and barbershops, big and small businesses. But we're also online, thetruthtoledo.com. And, we upload it every week. We come out every week, every Wednesday.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're online about that. And we also have a mailing list where we're sending out notices about, what's coming up, what has been. So you can get it anywhere. If you've got a little phone, you can pick it up.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, it's now time for Gretchen's Wacky Quiz.
This seems even more embarrassing.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing.
Around a legitimate journalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
look at us playing house here on WGTE. All right, I'm going to ask 4 rapid fire questions. Gretchen's going to ask you to describe Toledo in 1 word, and then you and Matt will list the 9 best things in Toledo. Question number 1, what's one piece of advice you would go back and tell your younger self?
My younger self? Oh, boy. I think I would have done more school.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would have gone to graduate school, get a law degree. I think that would be interesting. Not that I necessarily want to be a lawyer.
You don't.
But I think that type of education is invaluable.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell my younger self.
What's the craziest fashion trend you ever rocked?
I did, way back in the day, wear bell bottom.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to say parachute pants. But yeah, bell bottoms, that's not bad.
Bell bottom.
Okay.
I love it.
Love it.
Well, thank you for wearing them today.
Well, they're still fashionable.
They are. They're back. They're back.
If you could start a charity, what would it be for?
Hunger.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing I would like to address is eliminating hunger.
All right, well, it feels like an inappropriate follow-up question. What does your perfect sandwich have in it?
Perfect sandwich?
Yeah, what is the perfect sandwich?
I would say that my favorite sandwich is probably a corned beef on rye.
You can't beat that. What is the
with
one?
Mustard. Don't put any of that other M stuff in there.
No.
Okay, which some people do. Okay.
What's the other M stuff?
I don't know
We
what
don't
the
want
other
to
stuff
talk
is.
about
What is the one word
But
you
anything
would
else with
use
M?
to describe
Mayonnaise?
the city of Toledo?
One word?
One word.
I can't, can I use 2 words?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
my God.
Great people.
Okay.
I love the people of Toledo.
I'm learning for the first time that isn't one word. Okay. 9.
I know it's got about 11 to 12 letters in it, but it's one.
Not the way I spell it.
Okay.
9 of your favorite things. Let's roll through it.
9 of my favorite things here in Toledo?
Or the region.
Region.
We'll take either one you want.
Clearly, the lake.
Love it.
All
right.
Is right up there.
Okay.
Clearly the lake. I've got to say this, and I'm not trying to suck up to you or anything like that, but the Metro Park system is absolutely fabulous. Suck up to him or talk about Metro Park?
Certainly not suck up to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Metro Parks is great.
What's your favorite park, Fletcher?
My favorite park right now is the one that I was just in last night, is the new one, Glass City.
That warms my heart to
I
hear
mean,
that.
because I pass by it all of the time. There's so many interesting things to do in terms of restaurants, and walking
Well, your
around.
support for helping us get the word out was a big part of that, so I hope you see yourself in that.
Okay.
I mean that
Okay.
sincerely.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted me to say on the show. Right?
And just suck up to me.
That's right.
Suck up
Yeah.
to you.
Keep going. All right, we're only halfway
through. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, fire away. We're halfway home.
I love
favorite restaurants.
Restaurants here in town. Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones. But a lot of local ones like Giorgio's,
absolutely.
That sort of thing.
I got married there.
There are some lesser known ones like This Is It.
Yes. We're on Detroit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Fabulous. Fabulous places like that. Jamaican Spice.
Yes.
Is another.
You've only got 2 slots left. Yeah. So we got finished strong.
But those are some of the
What are your kids' names?
Fletcher.
Yep. All right.
And Fletcher. I named them all Fletcher. No.
Yeah, what are you, a boxer?
Fletcher.
Yeah. Boy, what you
Thanks to George Foreman for joining us on the program
George
today.
Foreman.
Yeah. That's why I said boxer. You guys are really on it this morning.
Fletcher and Laura.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, awesome. That closes it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's a
You
pleasure.
can catch the Georgia Truth every Wednesday, but you can also catch the local thread online at WGTE.org or download the new and improved WGTE app. We'll be right back on the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
Destination Toledo. Whether you're a local or a visitor, Destination Toledo invites you to explore the region and be a tourist in Toledo. Find events, dining, and things to do at visittoledo.org.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGT, as we close out a Tuesday edition. Incredible conversation with Amelia and Brittany and Tina, and
We're
of
not
course
worthy.
Fletcher. We are not worthy. I do have a question for you, Matt.
Yeah,
you
sure.
said something that, and I know Gretchen is normally the one that uses phrases that we don't know where they came from.
Yeah.
Because I'm the smartest of the three of us.
You use the phrase "kissing cousins."
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What? Where? What? Why?
Well, for those of you who don't know, our family tree has no branches. So that's what I mean. I mean that in matchmaking and lovemaking.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that being said, big family reunion this year, which means there's going to be lots of weddings coming down.
But you used it to describe
cousins kissing.
No, you used it to describe two things that were somewhat similar.
Somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like different enough, right? So are you saying that like there is a level of
It was
cousin?
really dumb the way you used it.
Yeah.
Is what Matt was what
you can
Kevin is
smell
trying
out
to say.
your own. Here's the deal, guys. I don't have enough time, and there's not enough time on all of WGT to educate you two. I would recommend using the electronic devices you have in your hand, purses and/or pockets.
I don't actually want to Google
Kissing cousins.
Kissing cousins?
Yeah. Oh, for the first time. Welcome back, Mr. Mullen. Yeah. Sure.
KissingCousins.com.
That's the least of your worries. Yeah. Everybody has that one cousin, and you know who you are, Paul.
I think yes.
All right. Huge thanks to Amelia Gibbon, Brittany Moore, Tina Hall, and Fletcher Wood, and of course, thanks to Matt's cousins for being on the program.
Thanks, Matt's
as
cousins.
well. If you missed any part of the show, 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91, or 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects Channel 30.4. Of course, online 24/7, 365 at WGTE.org/the419. Or download the new and improved WGTE app. It's the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Witro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.